annual basis, 1 acre of hemp will produce as much fiber as 2 to 3 acres of cotton. Hemp fiber is stronger than and softer than cotton, lasts twice as long as cotton, and will not mildew. Cotton only grows in moderate climates and requires more water than hemp. But hemp is frost tolerant, requires only moderate amounts of water, and grows in all 50 states. Cotton requires large quantities of pesticides and herbicides. 50% of the world's pesticides and herbicides are used in production of cotton. Hemp requires no pesticides, no herbicides, and only moderate amounts of fertilizer. On an annual basis, 1 acre of hemp will produce as much paper as 2 to 4 acres of trees. 1 acre of hemp produces more paper than 2 to 4 acres of trees. All right? From tissue paper to cardboard, all types of paper products can be produced by hemp. The quality of hemp paper is superior to tree-based paper. Hemp paper will last hundreds of years without degrading. Can be recycled many more times than paper or than tree-based paper, and requires less toxic chemicals in the manufacturing process than does paper made from trees. So you might be asking real quick, what does this hemp have to do with this, Oklahoma move, or with this Blacktown revival, or nation building as a whole? It has a lot to do with it, because we already know the power of the hemp. We know the power of the cannabis. And imagine being able to be more productive with this, something that grows a lot easier. A lot of us know how to grow hemp. These are things that's going to help with the economics. And I cover that in the paper. I'm going to read a little bit later. The hemp cultivation is going to help with that. We're not even talking about the marijuana. We're talking about the weed, growing weed and selling it and all that. We're talking about just the hemp. The tens of thousands of products and things that you could do with hemp, from medicine to building a car. If you've seen that video, that 1941 car by Ford, yeah, that was real. That was George Washington Carver who did that. We'll get into that a little bit later. So these things connect. All right? Hemp can be used to produce fiberboard that is stronger and lighter than wood. Substituting hemp fiberboard for timber will further reduce the need to cut down our forests. Hemp can be used to produce strong, durable, and environmentally friendly plastic substitutes. Thousands of products made from petroleum-based plastics can be produced from hemp-based composites. It takes years for trees to grow until they could be harvested for paper or wood. But hemp is ready for harvesting only 120 days after it is planted. That's from seed. So a lot of people now, when they grow hemp, they grow cannabis, they take it from the cones. So that's going to take probably about 30 days after process. So you could almost just say 90 days after, you put it down. But hemp can grow in most lands suitable for farming. Forests and tree farms require large tracts of land available in new locations. Harvesting hemp rather than trees will also eliminate erosion due to logging, thereby reducing topsoil loss and water pollution caused by the soil runoff. Hemp seeds contain a protein that is more nutritious and more economical to produce than soybean protein. Okay, this is important because more amino acids are in the hemp seeds per weight than any other thing in the world. So back to the nation building. If we're going to have sheep and cow and chicken, things of that nature, we don't need to give them steroids. We don't need to pump them up with chemicals and all that to make them grow fast. We can give them some straight up hemp seeds. And they can grow healthy, steroids without, contamination. That bullshit. Excuse the language. Hemp seeds are not intoxicating. Hemp seed protein can be used to produce virtually any product made from soybeans: tofu, veggie burgers, butter, cheese, salad, oils, ice cream, milk, etc. Hemp seed can also be ground into nutritious flour that can be used to produce baked goods such as pasta, cookies, and bread. Once again, now this ties in. All right, so we learned from Dr. Sabian, Lila Africa, and all that, and anyone else who's in the health field, conscious health field, whatever, the importance of getting off of white bread, because that's not really bread. I mean, what that is bleached. It's been put into a chemical process to become white, because we know flour. So even if we're not messing around with the straight, natural, whole grain, unbleached flour, you could actually make breads from hemp seeds. I didn't even know that until I read this. Hemp seed oil can be used to produce non-toxic diesel fuel, paint, varnish, detergent, ink, and lubricating oil. Because hemp seeds account for up to half the weight of mature hemp plant, hemp seed is a viable source for these products. Just as corn can be converted into clean burning ethanol fuel, so can hemp, so can sugarcane as well. Because hemp produces more biomass than any plant species, including corn, that can be grown in a wide range of climates and locations, hemp has greatest potential to become a major source of ethanol fuel. Literally millions of wild hemp plants currently grow throughout the U.S. Wild hemp, like hemp grown for industrial use, has no drug properties because of its low THC content. U.S. marijuana laws prevent farmers from growing the same hemp plant that proliferates in nature by the millions. From 1776 to 1937, hemp was a major American crop and textiles made from the hemp. Yet the American Textile Museum, the Smithsonian Institute, and most American history books contain no mention of hemp. The government's war on drugs has created an atmosphere of self-censorship where skin of hemp in a positive manner is considered taboo, politically incorrect and taboo. And we'll get into a little bit of that later on this part. So, United States Presidents George Washington and Thomas Jefferson grew hemp, used products made from hemp, and praised the hemp plant in some of their writings. No other natural resources offer the potential of hemp. Cannabis hemp is capable of producing significant quantities of paper, textiles, building materials, food, medicine, paint, detergent, varnish, oil, ink, and fuels. Unlike other crops, hemp can grow in most climates and on most farmland throughout the world with moderate water and fertilizer requirements. No pesticides or herbicides are required. Cannabis hemp, also known as Indian hemp, has enormous potential to become a major national resource that could benefit both the economy and the environment. So let me get into this real quick. I'm going to read a little bit of this paper, Industrialization or Industrializing Hemp. Someone did it like years ago. Go like this. Can the U.S. economy ever fully recover? Can humanity ever cure cancer? Is it necessary to cut down so many trees? What about our nation's infrastructure, smog in our city skies, or nuclear waste in our soils? All these questions have a common and realistic solution. We could make automobiles that weigh much less than they do now, run off self-made biofuel, are fully biodegradable, and would withstand 10 times the impact of steel without denting. Unfortunately, doing so would be illegal. We'll get to why later. What must change? Hemp must be nationally legalized for industrial purposes. They don't really mind, at this point, legalizing it to smoke. You know what I'm saying? If all you're going to do is smoke the weed, they ain't really tripping off that. What they don't want to do is make it ready for industrialization. So that's what the threat is. So as former President Bill Clinton once said during his 1992 campaign, it's the economy, stupid. The industrialization of hemp could easily add $1 trillion to our economy per year. We could increase our exports to other countries and not have to rely on imports such as the ever-increasing expensive crude oil from unfriendly nations. At one point in the U.S., hemp cultivation was mandatory, and our economy thrived as a result. General George Washington stated, "Grow it everywhere." Hemp is greatly viable for winning the war and sustaining a future fantastic for America. Millions of American lives could be saved, and the drastic effects of our environment could be greatly reduced. Many illnesses can be treated with hemp extraction. In fact, laboratory testing has concluded that hemp inhibits the growth of cancer cells. Hemp inhibits the growth of cancer cells. Makes it impossible for them to grow, basically. Experiments have also shown that hemp can be used to remove toxic nuclear waste from the soil through a process called photoremediation and methane small pollutants in the air. 1 acre of hemp produces more oxygen than 25 acres of forest. And paper made from hemp can recycle paper with paper, which only has the capacity to recycle 3 times. Do that. I'm sure by now many people are aware of the trivial facts such as our nation's first flag was sewn with cloth made from hemp, or the Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper. You may even be aware that Christopher Columbus ship sails, ropes, and other parts were constructed out of hemp. But did you know that our very roads and bridges can be constructed using hemp concrete that will last for centuries, require less maintenance, and be much more reliable? Ancient civilizations like Egypt and Rome did. China and Canada and England use hemp for industrial purposes. Why don't we? Now, this is not a pro-marijuana rant. In fact, it has nothing to do with marijuana. Marijuana is a flower that grows on the female cannabis plant. Hemp itself is typically and more effectively cultivated for the male plant, which contains no marijuana and has no psychoactive properties. Some very powerful, politically influential corporate giants of the 1930s whose industries would have been threatened by hemp made a power move to make the hemp plant illegal based on the female potential to produce marijuana. That's a nutshell summary of the work DuPont, Rockefeller, Hearst, Mellon, and others did to flood the political market with propaganda to get Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 passed. Sure, it worked out pretty good for them, but what about the rest of us? We're not talking about a drug here. We're talking about hemp. We're talking about something that could do wonders for our nation, as it's done before, and wonders for humanity in general. This is why hemp should be legalized and used for industrial purposes, to say the least.